I'd like to just issue a quick content warning on this video. This is the grossest thing I've ever had to do for the channel, and it is 100% fetish material, so you might not want to have kids watch this video. For anyone else, you've been warned. A wise man once said, "Life is pain." And that is what I felt the other day, where I read the Harley Quinn fart fetish comic. And I questioned my life, I questioned my sanity, I questioned my career choice, I questioned the people behind the scenes and why I ever got into reading comics. I questioned a whole lot. But in the end, I have realized that I am the Lorax of Harley Quinn. Who is the Lorax? The Lorax is somebody who was a safeguard for the trees, in that case, that it was protecting. And they warned that the people, the destruction that they were doing if they cut down those trees, and the good thing that they were losing, but they were ultimately not listened to, and the worst possible scenario happened. I am the Lorax of Harley Quinn. I tried to stop what was happening to her character in any way that I could, but like the Lorax, I was completely ignored, along with anybody else who tried to speak up about what was happening to her. Now, the Harley Quinn fart fetish comic was announced back in December, and it was announced with a ton of controversy, with accusations of it being a fetish book, because that's what it looks like. And as you see from the cover, it is a scratch and sniff book. Apparently you can scratch the pages and smell it, and they don't want us to believe that this is a fetish book. Do not worry though, I did not pay a red cent for this book, and I am nowhere near a physical copy. I have my ways of reading these comics without paying my magical piracy. I have my own magical ways of reading these comics, and while I am normally against using these magical ways, I have made an exception for these comics that I want to refuse to give any money to, any success to, but I want to inform people what DC Comics is doing with these characters. But back to the fetish accusations, Joanne Starer, who is the unfortunate culprit behind this book, responded to accusations that this was a fetish book on her Twitter, which for some reason her Twitter site is just promoting the book, but her last tweet was, "Just for the record, it's not a fetish book, it's an April Fool's Day comedy one-shot," and then she has the replies turned off. And that's what a minority of people were saying at the time of its announcement, that this isn't a fetish book, it's just an immature little kid's thing. I can say, after having read the book, who does Joanne Starer think she's fooling? This book is a blatant fetish book. It even acknowledges that multiple times throughout the comic. And it's even worse than I expected it to be, if you guys think that that is even possible. This is probably the worst thing that I have ever done for this channel. The worst experience ever. Any other movie that I have ever watched was a better experience than reading this book. And if you know the kinds of movies I have watched, then you know what I am talking about. And when the initial controversy happened, I had hoped that maybe it would have gotten to DC and they would have canned this book. They have done it before, when it's a Batman comic, when it's a character they care about, but Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, because, oh yes, she's in this book too, are characters that DC Comics does not care about. So this travesty was released, and we're going to explore it right now. What is in the book? I do want to put a content warning on this video because this is not going to be pretty. So as you can see from the cover, it says this comic reads, "Silent but deadly. In this issue, farts. Artificial rub and smell farts." Because yeah, this totally isn't a fetish comic. Just in time for April Fools. Well, it's not April Fools, so there's that. Let's dig in, shall we? Let's see this comic that DC Comics decided to release. So it starts off with Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. Because of course it starts with Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. Because these two are joined at the hip now and are defined by each other. And of course this is modern Harley Quinn, so she is going to talk in the most obnoxious voice impossible. Harley Quinn really doesn't have a voice anymore. It's just whatever craziness the writer wants to come up with. This one felt like a combination of Deadpool, Bugs Bunny, and the original Harley Quinn, which any sort of trace of the original is going to make me even madder because that's the one I care about. Here we go. A little drinky poo for you and a sip for you too. That's too much, Harl. You'll drown him. Oh, I'm spoiling them a bit, Red. I love them like my own. Like they came out of my own womb. That's not how it works. So Poison Ivy wants to show Harley how to water the plants the right way. And she bends over to show her, and she farts. And the face that she makes is the only time I laughed in the entire book, because I have come to despise Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy because of this relationship. I don't know who wants to fantasize about a woman who acts like a 6-year-old on crack, lusting after them and obsessing over them constantly. But that is what the relationship between Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy is, and it's been plastered on us constantly lately. Or that is, I should say, that's the most consistent version. Harley and Ivy have no consistency as characters anymore. Even in this one, Ivy is a little bit more angry at Harley than usual. I guess just because there's just no consistency with editorial. But anyway, Poison Ivy farts. And then Harley says, Ivy, did you toot? Of course not. You sure did. Smells like roses. And I'm assuming you could scratch the page and you would smell roses. Next page. So Harley is chasing Poison Ivy, trying to get her to fart again because she loves the way it smells. She argues that they must be comfortable but be around each other doing anything because that's love, and Poison Ivy doesn't want to do it. And Harley says, will you feel better if I let her rip too? Then we're even Stevens. Not a fetish book at all. Just a woman desperate to smell another woman's farts. And then Harley, just to try to make Ivy feel better, tries to fart herself so that Ivy will fart. This is the book. I can't believe I'm doing this. So then Ivy, rightfully so, wants to get away from this freak and leave. And she does, and then Harley finally farts. And I'm, once again, I guess, as this book was advertised, you could scratch and smell whatever that smells like. But this totally is not a fetish book that DC published. So then Harley is upset that Poison Ivy, the love of her life, of course, has stomped away because Harley is a sycophantic, disgusting freak these days. And I'm not going to read any more of this out loud, but this panel right here just exemplifies exactly what I hate about modern Harley Quinn. The video is done. Bye. JesterBell is closing down. Bye. I don't know how much more I can take this. Harley says, I miss her, Carl. Fred, yeah, really funny. She's the ketchup on my weenie, the bacon on my cheeseburger, the cyanide in my milkshake. She completes me. Is it any wonder why I hate Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy together? And I do. I hate Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy together. With the passion of 1,000 suns. With the fire of 1,000,000 pieces of lava. I hate Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. So, this is a long comic. It goes on, and basically Harley Quinn, she's not Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn used to not be involved with any of this kind of humor at all. She used to not sound like this, used to not obsess over Poison Ivy, and her obsession with Joker was portrayed as a bad thing, because obsessing over somebody that much is a bad thing. But anyway, Harley eventually finds a flyer to a museum celebrating the art of farts. So she goes to this museum of farts. I can't believe I'm reviewing this book. But you guys need to know it, because I used to have to review books like this all the time when I was reviewing DC Comics. This is what they've become, at least when it comes to Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, because they don't care about these characters other than using them to promote fetishes. Anyway, Harley goes to this museum of farts, and she finds some love letters that were written from a guy, a creepy old pervert who used to write love letters about his wife's farts, and Harley thinks that it is so romantic. See, that's a theme throughout this book, intertwining romance with farts. Once again, they still don't want us to believe that this is a fetish book. As pointed out on Batman News, the site I used to work on by Jackson Lucan, this poem that she's reading and the author James Joyce, this is actually an excerpt of a very sexually explicit poem that a guy was writing about his fart fetish to his wife. This comic calls him a perv and even alludes to a scene while it's non-graphic, but it alludes to him being turned on to do the deed because he smelled his wife's flatulence. So yeah, Joanne Starer was straight up lying on Twitter about this not being a fetish book. This is 100% a fetish book. It's gross and it was greenlit because of that. So Harley wants to get that letter for Ivy apparently. Did I mention that I hate Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy together because this is all the kind of stuff they publish with them? She gets the letter from the museum and then she meets this lederhoser person, Dutch oven, get it, who tells her that the letters are cursed. And Harley says, I mean, they are a mite sticky, but cursed? I'm gonna let you fill out in your own mind what that might mean. DC Comics published this for all to read from two characters that used to be their icons. The lederhoser Dutch oven person accuses Harley of looking like a stripper if a stripper was a baby, and Harley says that's exactly what I was going for. I hate you, DC Comics. I hate you for what you've done to this character. So then the woman reveals herself to be the ghost of the late wife of that one perv that we were talking about earlier, the writer, and we get a flashback to him when he was a writer long time ago, and we get to see a little bit of his bookshelf and stuff that he had. It says stuff like old white pervs, old white racists, old white misogynists, all of the above. Ha ha ha. Good on you, Joanne Stara. Ha ha. Old writers are misogynists and pervs and racists. Unlike you, you're not a misogynist or a perv. You're writing a totally respectful book about these two female characters. So, yeah, this book goes on for a long time, but long story short, the letter is cursed, and so what happens is not Harley, this monster that they've created that used to be Harley Quinn, she is now cursed to exude flatulence constantly because of what's happened in this book. She finds Poison Ivy again and she's fighting Batman because yes, Batman has been brought into this book. She says, look, you tried. Ivy'll understand. She ain't perfect either. Huh, yeah, she is. She friggin' poops daffodils. I hate Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy as a couple. This stupid, fetishized woman-child in a relationship with whoever Ivy is, depending on the writer. Never mind, though, I've said that before, but, Monster, I'm just gonna call Harley Monster in this. Monster says, hey, hot stuff, need a hand? I'm not ready to talk to you. Maybe because you're a pervy creep. Come on, Red, I love all of you, from your big green heart to your cute little fart. And this is what the book does throughout. It tries to make this weird, peppered in feminist narrative. Like Harley says, I can't believe you're making such a big deal of this. It's just a little toot. Men do it all the time. They make us ashamed. Don't give in to the patriarchy, babe. And Batman says, I don't care what you do with your bodies as long as it isn't against the law. What is this? What is this book? I have no words right now. What is this? So yes, then Harley Quinn, not Harley Quinn, wait, I remember, I was calling her Monster. Monster farts and destroys the battle between Ivy and Batman, and so then she has to go away. Then she has to find that lederhosen character from before to break the curse. But they both keep farting, that's the entire joke. And so it's basically all of this fetishizing of two women farting. There's just a lot more fetishized jokes in there and allusions to that. And then Harley meets that one pervy writer from before, and they have a big conversation about how he's a pervert. There's a gross scene. I can't believe that DC Comics published this. Even with all of the awful stuff I had to read from DC Comics, I can't believe they published this. A shot of the guy smelling Harley or Monster from behind and saying that she just has, there's just a fragrance to her. How did they publish this? This is so disgusting in the worst way possible. These two characters who used to be icons. She asked the guy how he got to be the world's famous writer, and he says, "Isn't it obvious? I'm a white man." Ha, 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 ha. 2016 humor, white men are privileged or something. Joanne Starr, you might want to check your own privilege that somehow you're this bad, but somehow you got work on a comic book from a company that's supposed to be somewhat successful. Not anymore. So I honestly cannot stand any more of this. There's just more fetishizing. Like, this book is openly acknowledging that it's a fetish book and that this guy has fetishes. But then what happens is there's more, like, fetishing and stuff going on. Harley runs into Plastic Man. He tries to help her with her problems. And then you might as well just fast forward the rest. It's just more of the same that we've seen before, and this book goes on forever. Eventually, Harley has a reconciliation with that lederhosen character that she's been fighting with throughout it, and says that she shouldn't be mad about her late husband, the author, because sure, he just loved, and I'm quoting the book here, he loved smelling women's farts, but that's a good thing, right? And she agrees. So, is this book trying to fight against the evil old white misogynists, or is it trying to say that that's a good thing? Because you're saying that this pervert with a fetish for this sort of thing from women is now a good thing, Joanne Starr, yet you're trying to give this a feminist spin? So, I guess after Harley, Monster, has gone on this whole journey, she finally goes back to Poison Ivy, and there's a little moral at the end here where Harley apologizes for pushing this on Poison Ivy, and it was wrong to try to make her do something she didn't want to do, and they make up, of course. Because at the end of the day, Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy is a wonderful, perfect relationship. But Monster says, okay, but also it's so cute when you... I'm not going to do this anymore. But Monster is still farting. So she says, what? I was going to play you a tune. Thanks for destroying these characters, DC, and making people never want to read them again. I'm assuming you could smell all of this, by the way. So Ivy calls Zatanna, because this book is still going, somehow, and she casts a spell that is no more bubbles spelled backwards. Monster is finally free from her affliction, but Zatanna informs her that the real problem is that she's lactose intolerant. So Monster is upset by that, but Poison Ivy says that she has something to cheer her up, and Poison Ivy farts for Monster's own pleasure, and says smells like roses, and that is how the comic ends. The worst thing that I have ever had to read for this channel. So that was clearly a degrading thing to read. It took me a couple of days actually to recover from reading it and come bring this all to you. So, and it was even more degrading to have to read even parts of that book to you out loud. So why did I do it? Why this video? Because I want you guys to know. Maybe you know Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy as icons. I want you to know that this is the kind of stuff DC publishes with these characters on the regular. Honestly, when I had to review comics, and I was reviewing Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, but especially for Harley, this is the kind of stuff they publish for her. It would be one thing if it was just crude humor, which used to never be a part of her character, but it's always constantly fetishized with this stuff. They have just published so many books like this of Harley and Ivy because that's all these characters are good for them. The people out there who have these fetishes and want to see them enacted by these characters. Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy is a fetish relationship. I bet you are in denial about that if you haven't actually read about them, but I have. They're two characters. Once upon a time, they were two of the more sexualized characters from DC Comics, and ever since they got them together, all they've been doing is using them for fetishes like this. They had that comic that was done by a former prostitute who was just projecting all of her fetishes onto them. It's pretty frequent stuff in their own comics, particularly Harley's comics, and now here. Why? Because DC Comics does not care about either character. They recognized a long time ago that there is a group of people who have these fetishes, who just want to see them from these characters, and they just threw them to them. They threw them to these people. Joanne Starer is not a successful comic writer. The only thing she did before this for DC was a Fire and Ice storyline. Also had some weird feminist narrative in there that was not done well, and it bombed. They give Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn in particular, to the worst writers possible and come out with the most degrading things possible because they hate this character. They do not care when people complain because they hate the fans of this character. I am convinced that some of this stuff is done because they hate the fans so much they just want to hurt them with stuff. And don't worry, DC Comics, apart from coming out and doing videos like this, I don't read about these characters anymore because you've succeeded. You've destroyed them. You got rid of any decent person who wanted to read about them because you are fetishizing them constantly and coming out with this garbage content. What else can we do? It's a real evil thing in my mind to use these characters for this kind of stuff. The only thing to do is to get rid of the people behind the scenes that are doing it and replace it with people who care. You might wonder at that point if there's any way to salvage these characters, because this is always going to be out there. All the content that they have made just fetishizing these characters. What if you want to eventually use Poison Ivy for a Batman movie? Then people are going to be able to go back and say, oh, here's the Harley Quinn Poison Ivy fetish book. Here's that Harley Quinn Valentine's Day special that was not safe for work, that was pretty much just softcore porn. Here's the Harley Quinn book we published by the prostitute. Here's the bondage Harley and Ivy comic. All of that stuff is going to be out there forever for people to find for these characters. That is what's heartbreaking about doing it in the first place. It's always going to be there, and it's always going to be there for people to find, which might destroy characters permanently. I'm wondering if Harley and Ivy as characters, because of this relationship and because of how fetishized it's become, and just as individuals, even though they're not really individuals anymore, in most stuff, I think that's ruined their characters potentially forever. And it's unfortunate. I don't know if anyone can do anything about it anymore. I don't know if anyone cares. But just so you guys know, just so any of you know, anyone who advocated for Harley and Ivy to be in a relationship, anyone who stuck by the let's change Harley's character, let's continue to change her, because the original one was offensive and she was bad and she needs to be changed. This is far more offensive than anything in the original. The original Harley Quinn I loved because she gave a good narrative about people stuck in abusive relationships. But all of you people who maybe threw out a tweet about this or advocate for the character to change, well, I hope you're happy, because this is the end goal of changing these characters and getting these two in a relationship. Fetish books. Disgusting, degrading fetish books. That is all that comes out from these characters anymore. As funny as it might be to watch me suffer and read through these books, that's honestly the takeaway at the end, is that these are two characters who were good once upon a time. Poison Ivy was once a fantastic character, and she has just been destroyed by these fetishists. So, thank you to all who wanted these characters changed. This was the end goal. I can't do anything or say anything more against DC Comics to stop them, but I hope that all of you who pressured these characters in this direction are happy with yourselves now. Thank goodness this is over, but now I have to go edit it. Thank you all for watching. If you agree with what I'm saying, I do have a Patreon page if you want to donate to it and donate consistently, and it really helps the channel out. And obviously I have short films that I'm working on and my own content if you want to check that out. Thank you all for watching. I hope that I never have to read a book like that again, and I guess I'll see you guys next time.